Hello everyone and welcome to the semifinals of the 2022 FIDE Grand Prix. It's Levon Aronian versus Leinier, Dominguez, Perez, and Levon pretty much just blazed through the quarterfinals. He was unstoppable, whereas Leinier had to fight a bit more. He went into the tiebreaks with Wesley, so we've seen a game from yesterday. He had a brilliant win against Wesley in that game 2 of the tiebreaks. So now we'll see what happens in this one. This is game 1 of their classical match. Levon has the white pieces, and we will have a very exciting Queen's Gambit accepted, so I hope you are ready for that. So Levon, with the white pieces, opens with d4. We have d5 by Leinier, c4, and now d captures on c4. So you know there's going to be a good fight already. We have e4, grabbing the center, very principled by Levon, and now b5, defending the c4 pawn. We have a4 undermining the pawn chain, and now c6. We are adding a defender to the b5 pawn. A captures on b5, c captures, and now just knight to c3, going after that b5 pawn. And this is already incredibly tricky. Just to give you an example, if you try and defend it with a6, we can pick it up with knight captures on b5, but black will capture this, and then we will give up the rook on a8, bishop to b7, sacrifice the exchange, rook to a1, and bishop captures on e4. With extremely complicated play. If white isn't well sure of what he's doing, things could go very wrong for white. But in most of these lines, you will be giving up the rook here. That's how the Queen's Gambit accepted is played nowadays. So here, queen to b6 by Leinier, and knight to d5, going after the queen on b6. We have queen to b7. Now if the knight moves, we will have pressure on that e4 pawn, and bishop to f4. Now threatening knight to c7 check to win the rook here. And you can't really play knight to a6 to guard the c7 square this way because we just pick it up. Rook captures, queen captures, and now we have this monster royal fork. Black is just destroyed here. So instead we have e5 here. This is the only move for black. So there's a unique set of moves that you really have to know if you want to play this. Bishop captures on e5, and only now knight to d7. Now black is even inviting white to play knight to c7 check because here after king to d8, what do you play? It's not a great position for white. Your bishop is hanging, and also if the bishop moves somewhere weird, the knight is hanging as well. And if you capture the rook, which is pretty much what you came here to do, there's bishop to b4 check, and the white can resign. You either give up the queen, or you play king to e2, and then queen captures on e4 is checkmate. So that's how complicated the Queen's Gambit accepted is. So after knight to d7, Levon just brings the bishop back, bishop to f4. And now it's not only moving the bishop back one square, you're also defending it against this bishop to b4 check after knight to c7 check. So now the bishop will be able to block as well. So here we have knight g to f6, Leinier continues development, and knight to c7 with check. So now Levon will grab the exchange, king to d8, knight captures on a8, and now like we said, bishop to b4 check isn't all that impressive now because we can play bishop to d2, our bishop is not on e5. So queen captures on e4 check first, bishop blocks, knight blocks check. So we also defend our bishop on f4, and now queen captures on a8. We have f3 now, grabbing more control over the central squares, also keeping an eye on this knight on f6, so it can't really jump around. But of course it can go to d5, which is exactly what Leinier does. He attacks the bishop now, and there is a game where king to f2 was played. It's kind of a move you want to play because you are not castling. Normally here you have to castle artificially, so king on f2 will be very good. But first we have bishop to g5 check, and it is only now as of move 15 that we have a completely new game. So Dominguez stops this with f6. We have bishop back to d2, and now bishop to d6. Continuing development, we have knight to g3, now with ideas of king to f2, bishop to e2, and finally bringing the rook into the game. But Leinier has something to say about this. He plays queen to b8 and puts pressure on white's knight here. So now if you just play bishop to e2, we're gonna very happily capture here. Win a pawn and bring our queen all the way to g3. So king f2, we add another defender to the knight first, rook to e8, now the rook gets into the game, and the bishop to e2. So now white is ready to finally bring that rook to e1, so bishop to c7. Here, maybe just a6 and continue to play this. Okay, you are down the exchange, but you have very nice pressure. You still have the bishop pair. If those pawns start marching down the board, it's going to be very difficult for white to stop them. But here, Leinier has a very different idea. He plays bishop to c7. We have rook to e1. Levon got his rook into the game, and now you again have to play this a6 move and just keep it a solid structure. But here, bishop to b6 was played. And now this is a problem. You no longer have this incredible pressure on the g3 square, and now Levon just hides the king on g1. So now there is no bishop captures on g3, and Levon is very happy with his position. So here, knight to e5. You could also capture the pawn on d4 with check, but just king h1. Levon would very happily give up this pawn to play king h1, because look at the position now. The white king very nicely artificially castled on h1, and the black king stuck in the center of the board. This is not a position you want to play against Levon. So instead, knight to e5 as the d pawn is pinned. So king to h1, again welcoming this opportunity. We have knight back to c6, now putting even more pressure on this pawn, and it seems like black is doing fine, but remember, the black king is still in the center of the board, and also black is just lost here. So how are we going to approach this position? Feel free to pause the video here and win the game for white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on once again realizing that the king is in the center of the board and we have to open up lines towards the black king. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course pawn to b3. That's how we are going to open lines. And now of course if captures, we're just going to capture on b5, so black will not capture. But also you can't just do nothing, because just b captures on c4, and not only is your king still in the center of the board, you're losing material. So c3 was played, but this isn't much better. Yes, you are attacking the bishop on d2, but still Levon just captures on b5. And now the problem is, if you capture on d2, we're just going to capture on e8 with check. After king captures, pawn captures here with check, and we're going to pick up the knight as well. King to d8 or somewhere, bishop captures here, and now we are up a full rook because we were already up the exchange, so we are now up a full rook. So instead, after bishop captures on b5, we have bishop to d7 by Dominguez, and now rook captures on e8, bishop captures on e8, and now bishop back to e1, as your bishop is still hanging here. A bit of a cleaner execution would be just captures and bishop to e1, because you pretty much eliminate black's counterplay, but that's of course easier said than done. And I think Levon was also playing on Leinier's time, because Levon has over an hour on the clock. Leinier is already below 10 minutes. So here just bishop to e1, and now okay, now you give up the d4 pawn. We have bishop captures on e8, but now you've allowed black to throw in this very unpleasant pawn to c2 move. And well, okay, it's an ugly position for black, but also there's a passed pawn on c2, which is never very comfortable. So queen to d3, white is still okay here. We have king captures on e8, and now comes bishop to d2 by Levon. And like I said, Levon still has over an hour on the clock, and he is winning here, but he has to play it very precisely. However, he plays bishop to d2, and he allows Leinier to get back into the game. The thing is, you really I don't want to give black, a moment's breath. You have to play knight to e2, put pressure on the knight. Now you're threatening to win material. And once black defends this, let's say queen e5, now we just trade. Knight captures, and if bishop captures, rook to c1. We really want to get rid of this pawn here. So knight to e3, black will defend it, and now bishop g3. We attack the queen. After queen to c5, we play bishop to f2. Again, our plan is to capture the knight and then pick up the pawn. So black will again try and trick us. Now he says, all right, you can capture the knight now, but then after I capture, you will not be able to capture because of queen to a1, and you will be in a lot of trouble. So we're just going to have to play f4 here, for example, and after queen captures, now we play this captures, and rook captures on c2, of course, and we are up the exchange and winning this game. However, Levon, again, I think he was playing on Leinier's time, played bishop to d2, and now it's a little bit different. Queen to e5, and what can you play now? Well, rook to c1. You're still hoping to somehow win this c2 pawn, but now we have f5 here, and it's it's very, very hard to play this. For both black and white, we have queen to c4. And now the thing is, the reason that I said that Levon messed up and he lost his advantage is that if black finds the correct continuation here, then it's fine for black. But if not, he is completely lost. And here you have to find f4. I'm just going to show it to you because it's impossible to find. But f4 saves black. The point is you have to prevent white from playing f4. That's the problem. And now after the knight moves, now you play knight to e3, you defend your pawn once again, and your position is, well, very enjoyable. And you don't care about queen c8 check, you don't care about queen to g8 check. We can quickly show, for example, queen g8 check, king here, and if queen f7 check, we can block queen e7. There's no continuation here with white. And even if you try queen to c8 with check, it's pretty much the same thing. King f7, queen d7 check. Now you can play king to g6. And this is very similar to what actually happened in the game, with one huge difference, and that is Leinier did not play f4. He started with knight to e3 right away, and now you will see the difference this f4 move makes. So here we have queen to c8 with check. Interestingly, now both queen c8 and queen g8 are winning without the inclusion of the f4 move. So queen to c8 check, king to f7, and now queen to d7 check. And now you finally see why the f4 is so important, because now if queen e7, we just pick up the queen, and after king captures, the knight is hanging. The f4 was not played. So after queen d7 check, king to g6 was played. And now, of course, there is only one winning move for white, but I don't even have to ask you guys to pause the video because we've already said it many times. White to play and win. White, of course, plays pawn to f4. And this is the only winning move because we have to get the queen away from there, and we have to prevent black from playing f4. So here, Levon played this beautiful f4 move. And now, what do you play? The thing is, if you capture on f4, then you'll no longer control the e file. Queen e8 check, and now you're getting destroyed. If king to g5, we can just play bishop captures on e3, and the queen is lost. The queen on e8 controls the bishop here. And also, if you play something like king here, knight to h5, a nice royal fork, you will lose the queen this way. So after f4, Dominguez has to go back. We have queen to e6, offering a queen trade, but now Levon can just trade down into a winning endgame, because we have to remember he is still up the exchange. Black only had a very, very active play, but you know, once everything gets traded off, that no longer holds any importance. So here, queen captures on e6, knight captures, and knight to e2. Now, you could play this many ways. Levon finds the simplest and the strongest continuation, that is just knight e2. We control the f4 square, so we're not going to give up our pawn, and now we are ready to pick up the knight. Of course, even g3, defend the pawn, pick up the knight, remove the defender of the c2 pawn, and then rook captures on c2. So that's pretty much all there is. And it's still move 36, so 4 more moves to reach time control. Levon some 55 minutes on the clock, and Dominguez some 5 minutes on the clock. So knight to g4 was played. He wants to try some knight to f2 ideas, but still will not do all that much. The idea is, if rook captures, we're going to deliver this check, and now go knight g4 check, where we are hoping for a repetition, or if king f1 knight captures on h2, we pick up a pawn with check and so on, but still should be very good for white. However, Levon just plays g3. This is the absolute best. We have knight to c5. This move was made with 3 seconds on the clock for Leinier. We have b4 challenging the knight, knight to d3 attacking the rook, and finally the pass pawn is eliminated. Rook captures on c2. We have knight g to f2 with check, king to g2, knight to e4, and now as this move was played, this is now move 40, so time control has been reached, but there is no more point in continuing. Here Levon played knight to c1, and it was in this position on move 41 that Leinier Dominguez Perez resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So you're down the exchange, and that's pretty much it. You have nothing to show for it. There are no tricks you can try. There are no, you could play some knight here ideas, but still, for example, knight here. It looks very scary. You have 2 knights in front of the white king, but the white king just laughs in your face and says, I'm on a light square. Your knights can't touch me. The bishop is a dark square bishop, so I'm perfectly safe here. So of course, Leinier doesn't want to try and do something here, because now we've reached move 40 and additional time has been acquired by both players. So really an exciting game. Queen's Gambit accepted, always fireworks on the board, and you can see how it all came down to here, where Leinier found this weird plan of bishop c7 to b6, whereas the bishop is really nicely placed here. Really prevents white from just normally playing rook e1 and king back to g1, because the knight will get destroyed. The knight cannot move, otherwise you pick up the h2 pawn. So you know, everything is great as it is. A nice a6 here, and the game goes on. But I guess this is where the preparation ended, and well, it seems that he didn't think the bishop was as important here. And also the d4 pawn is undefended, so it seems like you should be okay here, that maybe white should waste the move defending it, but as Levon showed, not really. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank, sorry about that in this position, feel free to pause the video, Jonathan Kemp, Fork Entry View, Shins to my channel, Kanji and David Bryan for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE Grand Prix semifinals until the end. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.